to be by myself. We still haven't met the new guy yet, have we?
No, we have not. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the Community Redevelopment Agency meeting November 1st. Would you call the order, please?
We will need to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Biondi,
Aye. Here.
Brantley,
Here.
Keim,
Here.
Gebhardt,
Here.
Slaughter. We have all commissioners in attendance, and also in attendance is the CRA liaison, Gloria Tate.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a motion to approve the minutes of the September 6th regular meeting.
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, we would like to do the hurricane update next. We're going to go out of order just a little bit. We're going to put that before citizens' input. So who? Chief Lamb?
Good afternoon, Ryan Lamb, Fire Chief, Emergency Management Director. So to talk a little bit about the city's response to Hurricane Ian. Obviously, it's been a devastating incident here for our city, and the response to this incident across our city has taken all hands from our city employees, from responding to emergency calls for police and fire, from our public works crews responding to get the roadways clears, get our infrastructure squared away, utilities crews getting our water and sewer back in functioning order, to over 1,300 roughly employees working here from the city's perspective during that declared incident to make sure our city was in best position to respond to immediately the damage from Hurricane Ian. Where we find ourselves at today is continuing the long road of recovery. It's going to be a long process as we recover from Hurricane Ian. So to hit on a couple things that are upcoming, so debris. Debris continues for collection of debris for vegetation and what's called C&D, or construction and demolition debris. We're focused on the vegetation throughout the whole city, but on the construction debris, specifically in the south area of the city. We're kind of that U shape around the bottom of the city, south of Cape Coral Parkway. We're beginning debris collection for the waterways. That's a new update. We've got official permission from the DEP and the Army Corps of Engineers to go out and begin that collection. We're also working with the state. The state's going to be responsible for derelict vessels and vessel recovery in waterways. And we're also working right now to, there's a number of steps of process to get into private residences, private developments to be able to collect debris from there. And we're waiting on final approval from FEMA for collection of debris from commercial properties as well. This week on Thursday, we have a town hall with FEMA. This is going to be a key meeting, I believe, for a lot of our residents and business owners. We're going to have SBA here to speak on small business administration, loans, and other services that they offer. We're going to have folks here from National Flood Insurance that are going to talk about the 50% rule, again, for homes built, I believe it's 1981 or older, if they have 50% of the value of the structure lost, about bringing it all the way back up to code. We're also going to have individuals to talk about temporary housing, I think is another big issue for our community moving forward. And we believe in the next day or two that we'll be able to officially announce the opening of a DRC, a Disaster Recovery Center. This is where when you do the initial intake for individual assistance with FEMA, if you get denied or have questions about that process or kind of case management, that happens at a DRC. So those folks, we're very hopeful that we're going to be able to actually, I just got while we're sitting in the back, a memorandum of understanding for the use of the facility. So we'll get that signed and then get that announced publicly. Also, part of this recovery process is permitting and making sure that we can respond quickly to the needs of our community. So the city has waived all permitting fees, and we've opened not only City Hall but another site down at the Art Studio on Coronado for individuals to quickly get permits, again in a paper format, so that they can be issued almost immediately in most cases. And I think right now roof and electrical are the key things there from the last update from Development Services. We're continuing to assess all of our city-owned facilities and properties, things like the Yacht Club, Chester Street Resource Center, Lafayette, to see what their damage looks like and if we're going to be able to remediate those properties. We're continuing to work with our, so the fire inspectors and building inspectors have gone out and they've done an assessment of all of our commercial businesses to see if it had water over an outlet and it requires an electrical inspection. If it had significant roof damage that was structural in nature, that would be unsafe for people to occupy. So that's been completed. Right now, the Army Corps of Engineers is out working through with a specific focus on multifamily structures, so things that are more than 2 families, something larger than a duplex, to make sure, again, that there's any safety concerns are addressed at those multifamily structures as well. I also have a group in from the University of Central Florida. They're going out and mapping the high water marks, so that something interesting for us into the future to be able to look at, kind of a map of where did we actually see storm surge inundation in our community. Other things like traffic signals and traffic lights are going to take a long time to get back in functioning order. Some of those, specifically on traffic signals, some of those parts are before the storm, we're having supply chain issues. We're going to continue to see some of those things that affects specifically some of our traffic intersections. And then business recovery, if I can, I'll miss Sharon, if she mind coming up for a second to talk specifically what we're doing with our business community.
Good afternoon, members. So our approach for the recovery following a disaster was essentially categorized in 3 ways: assessing, communicating, and facilitating. So with assessing, we worked with the business communities, and the Chamber of Commerce was embedded in our EOC to get real-time feedback, phone calls, and getting a sense of what businesses were operating, what the extent of damage was taken on, and also providing information to them as resources were coming online. We have an economic impact assessment just to do an initial look at data to see the condition of some of our structures commercially. So we have that data and have continued to look for it to be refined in sharing that. Initially, the first kind of sweep of the businesses, 38% were affected, 43% unaffected, 4% major, 13.9% minor damage. Again, that was through the first sweep, and as information gets more fine-tuned, we'll be able to key in on that. Communicating. We were working very closely with communications and getting all of the resources together, ongoing communications with SBA as some of those programs were coming online. We put that information together in handouts and also the guidelines that came out of permitting for the emergency permitting, put that in handouts and personally went to businesses, walked and did one-on-ones to explain the programs that were available, talk to them about the emergency permitting, and to address any questions that they had. In terms of businesses that we were able to make contact with, there were 60 businesses that were visited one-on-one visits that occurred. Nita, I think, is here, and she personally walked through the downtown Cape and working with those businesses. We also touched and talked with the business parks. In terms of initial assessment as well, we had a link that was set up for all of our businesses to respond. That was a part of our EOC, and they had the opportunity to, again, report their, whether they were open and operating, and give us some idea of what type of damage they were looking at. From that data, one of our first priorities was being able to identify essential services for our residents. So we set out to specifically track when the grocery stores were open, when the pharmacies were open, identifying the gas stations so that we could get that out to our residents and they could utilize those essential services. Facilitating, we again had been working with SBA throughout the Disaster Recovery Center, getting information on, not the Disaster Recovery Center, that's later, getting information on the resources that were coming in and online, making sure that we understood what those resources looked like. And we were instrumental in being able to lobby to get the Business Recovery Center open and operating on Santa Barbara. So just a piece of information. The Business Recovery Centers are structured to have one location per county. Through efforts of, again, lobbying, letting them know what our needs were, we were able to get a second business recovery center established in Lee County to service our Cape Coral businesses. So we are still continuing to work with that agency, working with Lee County, making sure that Cape Coral businesses are part of that conversation and explaining it. And as resources continue to come online, we are continuing to communicate and make sure that we get that information out to our businesses.
Thank you.
So folks, as you well know, the CRA took a specifically bad hit as our city, it was impacted across the entire 120 square miles, but that area of the CRA took probably the brunt of the storm for the city of Cape Coral. So we're mindful of that, and we're continuing to work and provide resources. And at this point, like we mentioned, this is the marathon of recovery that's going to take weeks, months, years for us to fully recover. So I'll stand by for questions.
Janice?
Okay, so you said that 38% was effective. Is that just the CRA, or was that the entire city?
That was the entire city. We
Okay.
are still needing to drill down on specifically South Cape. We don't have access to that
Okay,
data
so
yet.
38% you said was effective. And then you said Nita went to 60 businesses in the CRA, right?
Total.
Total,
Yeah,
okay.
just total. But she specifically targeted the businesses in the Cape and the industrial parks. So those were boots on the ground, walking to each business as they were available. A lot of them were not open at that time.
All right. So my question, I guess, is after you've assessed, and since we're at the CRA and we're more South Cape, how bad are the damages in South Cape? And what, I've seen some of the wraps are still on. I don't know about vegetation. What are some things that may not be covered by other agencies that we may need to help with? I know with COVID, we rapidly set up a grant program ourselves. We found some money and we helped out some of the businesses that applied. So I'm kind of more interested, since we're the CRA, of what's going on in the CRA and how much damage.
Right. So again, we are still trying to get more specifics. I can tell you that from the data that we were collecting in the conversations, that a lot of the businesses were still trying to get a handle on the amount of damage that they had, either waiting for their adjusters or, some contractors to come in. We saw the response, a lot of roof damage, just general water that was coming in. So it's difficult to be able to give you that number and to key on specifically with the businesses that are located in the Cape. However, I am continuing to have those conversations that I mentioned before, and we're looking at what types of programs we can offer to the businesses. I think there's some opportunity for some funds that still exist through COVID to be able to make those programs, or at least continue to communicate and make our businesses aware of funds that are available specifically for equipment and inventory. That's something that can supplement what's coming out of SBA. It's an existing, program that's still available. There's still funding that's there. I'd like to get a good sense of where we are in terms of the specific damages. And there may be some of our programs that we have through our incentives that we can connect our businesses with. It's not going to be able to necessarily address all of the businesses because some of them are targeted. But I do believe that one of the things we'll need to consider is just the amount of damage that happened with the landscaping and all of the investment that was already put into the CRA, and we'll want to get a number to that as well to assess the damage.
That's just a concern of mine, because if you say that we need $200,000 or whatever, possibly that isn't covered by some other organization. Go ahead.
So I can tell you that FEMA does not reimburse for landscape repair or replacement, and that is something that we will be able to finalize once we have the evaluations completed on the damage. That's something we'll have to bring back to all of you, but that is something to consider, is the landscape damage that took place on Cape Coral Parkway, Southeast 47th, Lafayette.
Lights.
Right. In addition to lights, and I was going to provide this update to all of you, we know that the lights on Southeast 47th Terrace, those are damaged. The electrical equipment was submerged underwater. It's going to be some time before those lights can be repaired. I don't have a definitive timeline, but it's going to be some time yet before that's repaired. That may be reimbursable by FEMA, but we know that FEMA doesn't reimburse the city for landscape repair or replacement.
Right, so that's something that in the future we may have to have a discussion, that some of the money that we have may be used towards that.
Correct, and on another note, since there's so many businesses in our CRA district, what I wanted all of you to know is, as of today, the city has not yet received approval from FEMA to collect debris from commercial properties. Now, we have people working on that. I know the mayor's working to try to obtain that approval. He's working his contacts. We sent a letter, but as of today, we still don't have approval to remove debris from commercial properties. So as of right now, commercial properties are on their own until that approval can be obtained through FEMA.
Thank you.
One follow-up with what Maureen said. At our last meeting, the mayor brought up a proposal or a thought on facade treatments, possibly grants and stuff like that. And I remember at the time thinking, it's a good project, especially where you can establish some skin in the game, so it's not just free money. And I thought it was a good idea, because simply when your economy is growing and you get to bring in some of those, and I'll say it, some of those more unsightly businesses or uses, you get to at least improve them or facade them, hide them, And in this case now with the storm, my brother, I remember him commenting, who grew up here, and I never did, but his comment was, it reminded me of how it used to look before all the trees got big. He said that was the first thing that he noticed. So my thought is, I like the idea, especially if we can go from FEMA and put on the private property owners and the business owners to improve their property as much as they can by law, by insurance, and by budget. But then, in additionally, using then some incentive program, because the problem we have, and we were talking amongst ourselves before the meeting, the storm, it affected some people, not at all. Some minor, some like me, a little more, and some, much more, where I'm afraid we may not have, friends and visitors for a while. So my thought is, if we can look at that, because while I'm first interested in the CRA as a function, and that's what it is, but at the end of the day, that type of district serves not just activities, but a look. And right now it's pretty beat up. It looks like we've had a really good party and maybe need to kick out some of the roommates. But what I'd like to do is, if we can identify not just the funding source of those things that will be an allowance, but when there is an allowance, then what is our strategy? And most importantly, when we're gonna probably have a pot of money that will be smaller than our need, how do we create some priorities so at the end of the day, those who get awarded, we can look in the mirror of why we've done that, and those who didn't, well, they met criteria where another one didn't. So that's all I have to say on that.
As a follow-up to that, when we talked about that facade program, was there specifically money earmarked in the budget? Had we moved that far along with that to identify some money?
No money has been budgeted, but I can tell you that the city manager has assigned the Office of Economic and Business Development to work out the details of that, of a facade grant program, a proposal that all of you will review when it's in its draft form.
That has
If I
not
can-
been presented to us yet to approve or disapprove, so no, we didn't get that far.
Correct.
So if I can just add to that, the city manager had requested that we look into that prior to the hurricane.
Right.
And we were putting that together. Things got a little delayed, with our 2-week deferment into other things. But we have been looking at that and have gotten, the framework of some of those components together, and that will be available shortly.
Greg, you have anything? No? I have a question. Did we, I know you said Nita and yourself, you'd been around to the different businesses that were open. Have we sent out maybe a survey? Is your business going to be open? Is it open? How long is it going to take to get open? Something to give an idea of what South Cape may look like by March.
So we do have something similar to that in place. Again, it's not targeted specifically to South Cape, but there is a link that we established, we sent out, and it specifically is asking businesses to weigh in on whether they're open, operating a timeline for when they think that they'll be open. Again, what type of damage have they sustained, so we can get a good picture of it. We have 170 businesses that have responded to date.
Okay.
So it's been very well received, and it will be helpful to us, but also helpful to the state so that we can tell our story and being able to put some numbers and some, true cases to what's being experienced with the hurricane.
Now, if FEMA is not going to pick up the debris for the businesses, what can we, as the CRA, do to help them, the businesses, if anything? Can we, should we, or should they just take this on themselves?
So I'll answer that in 2 different methods. So first is there is a construction debris site that's open that residents can take material to and drop it off. And that's available. You can go to capecoral.gov, Hurricane Ian, and find it there. We do have a request into FEMA right now to allow us to be able to go through and do that process. Most of the time what FEMA wants to see, though, is that businesses have activated some form of insurance to be able to use that to do that, right? Because they don't want to come in and just take that on. They want to see businesses that have tried to use something, or I think sometimes, and maybe I'm speculating is a bad thing here, they wait a little bit to see businesses solve it on their own, and then they come through and help out the ones that they can't. So we're hopeful that here in the next little bit we'll get a response from FEMA that allows us to go in and collect that commercial debris from businesses. And again, our plan is to start kind of in the Del Prado, Cape Coral Parkway area. That's kind of been our point for a lot of things, working through that Cape Coral Parkway, 47th, all the way down to the other side to the Chiquita area, but most of it's focused in the CRA area.
Okay. Does the debris, you're saying commercial debris, does that include the vegetation debris? Are they picking that up, or are we responsible, those businesses responsible for that as well?
My understanding, it's all of the
Okay.
debris that's generated from a commercial property.
Okay.
So whether it be vegetative appliances or the construction debris, it's all of that debris.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to say that I know that there's some time spacing between our meetings. And as this thing rolls out, if the city finds that there are gaps in this for which CRA funds could be legitimately used to speed this process along or to fill in these gaps, I, for one, and I'm guessing the rest of the commission, I don't mind a special meeting being called so that we don't delay
Right.
some of those stopgap measures by 3 weeks or 3 months or 2 months if it means us getting in here more frequently over the next year to take what action we need to take to formally approve the use of those funds so that these things can be moved along as quickly as possible, I certainly hope that's considered.
The insurance part, if they're waiting on that, the insurance is, everybody's still just waiting on insurance. So it's going to take a long, long time for them to give any money for that.
So generally what we see is they're going to wait a period of time, and then either they'll respond to ours or they'll come back out with a blanket statement that says, now for these affected counties, FEMA is now going to approve commercial debris for those counties, and that will allow us to then move forward. But what we don't want to do is go forward, start doing it, and then be on the hook for the tab afterwards.
Right.
At least if we're going to do that, at least we go into it with our eyes open on what that is.
If I may just add just a few comments. Rob Hernandez, CRA Executive Director and City Manager. Just want to reinforce what Ms. Bice mentioned in her comments to you. We are currently in the process of evaluating the condition of the public infrastructure within the CRA that you're responsible for. And we know that especially when it comes to landscaping, as Ms. Bice mentioned, you have suffered a great deal of loss with respect to landscaping. Also, she mentioned the lights. So I just want you to put that in the back of your mind that once we get to the point where you're ready to have a conversation about possibly using some CRA funds to support the restoration of certain businesses, I need you to keep in mind that it's also on you to support the restoration of that public infrastructure. So until we know how much that is going to cost, and those are assets that are not reimbursed by FEMA and are probably not insurable, and so they're going to have to come out of the CRA's pocketbook. So just need you to keep in mind before we head out in any direction of providing any type of incentives for any purposes without understanding the extent of the damage to the CRA responsible public elements.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anything else?
Just as a closing comment, again, getting businesses back up and thriving in our economy jump-started is a key focus. That gets people back to work. It keeps people moving here in our local community. As Sharon mentioned earlier, it's important for us to tell our story. No one else is going to come tell Cape Coral story. No one else is going to come tell the story of the CRA. So it's incumbent upon us to do that, because when we tell those stories, that draws additional resources here from the state and federal government. So again, the town hall meeting on Thursday, if we would, please pass that out to anybody and everybody. We want to get a large turnout there. We want FEMA leaving here saying, holy cow, we need to send more help to Cape Coral. So thank you.
Thank you. I just have one other thing. Most of what we've been talking about here is about commercial. We have a lot of residential neighborhoods that were strongly and severely damaged in this storm. And I think we need to try to clean up those areas the best we can. On a not personally, but when you look at the streets in the yacht club and you look at the streets off Pelican, and then you go off Palm Tree and you see the same type of damage there, I think it would benefit everybody if they would clean up the debris that's at the curb so that the owners of those properties don't have to go out every day and see their house, their life is on the curb. And that's just a feeling that I have. I'm sure you do too, Jim, because that's your house too. And that was Gloria's house. And, it's just something we need to kind of concentrate on. I can live with tree limbs on my front lawn. If I had to look at my house outside, I think that would be a problem.
So we're keenly aware of that, and we're trying to make an emphasis specifically on Southeast Cape of going through and picking up the construction debris. As you mentioned, it's your whole life. You come back in and it's dragging, now that we're over a month past this storm. So we have an emphasis in that Southeast area to go through and pick up the construction debris that's currently out. Just to talk through the debris process for a second, it takes a lot. There's a lot of specific rules from FEMA. We use a company called Ceres as our debris hauler, and they use a bunch of subcontractors, but Ceres goes out and they're the guys that actually have the claw trucks and put it in the back of the truck. There's another car that follows them, and that's a group called Tetra Tech, and they have somebody who goes out and they have to take a picture of every pile of debris, and it geocodes where that debris came from before they're allowed to pick it up and put it in the truck, right? So they have to go through and make sure, it's not in a plastic bag, there's not hazardous waste, all these things have to be separated to make sure it's a good pickup. So then they go through and they pick it up, and once they're full, they go drive to the drop-off site. The picture of the top of the truck gets taken to estimate how many cubic yards, and then it goes in, it gets dumped, and then another picture of that empty truck has to be taken before it can leave and go back out. All of those steps have to be followed to make sure that we get full reimbursement. So it's a long process. I think today we're going to crush 200 trucks. We've got a truck about every mile and a half square mile that one truck is assigned to. So we have one contractor. If we have an issue in a specific area, we know who it is. So we're actively working through that. One of the other issues, especially in that area, with the amount of stuff that's had to come out of people's houses, it's out of the public right away, right? It's all the way up to people's front doors. And so being able to go back through, our plan is to do 3 passes for all 3, for construction, debris, and vegetation, and appliances. So they'll come back around 3 times. And so there's a map on capecoral.gov that shows, where we've been, and if we've completed that area for first pass and where we can continue to get to. So we're actively working on that. The problem is just there's 5 years worth of construction debris and over 7 years of horticulture debris that's out there that we're trying to get picked up within 60 days. So we have till November 22nd is the 60-day 100% cover from FEMA for financial, that the federal government will pick up the full tab. After that, it generally goes to a 75% federal government, 12.5 state government, 12.5 local government. And so it's where we're trying to really make a push to get as much of it up as we can right now. And obviously, politically, Mayor and other folks are lobbying to try and get additional time under that 100% cover.
Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Chief, remember at council we showed that map that Michael Chisholm had with the green with the 7,000 residents? It might be helpful for them to be able to get that in an email or something so they can see that area that was affected.
Okay, we'll see if we can get to Helen perhaps and have it emailed out to the group.
Yes.
I have a question. And I know staff is overworked, and I know that they're short-staffed. I know that I certainly would be willing, if necessary, and if you can use the help, can't speak for my other CRA commissioners. Is there something that we can do in South Cape to help you guys out, like a survey or something like that, that we can help get the information for you and knock on doors?
As far as the business community goes? So I know with Donna Germain from Chamber, she was in there with us throughout the duration of the storm.
As was Billy.
As was Billy.
But
yeah.
not everybody's a member of the chamber in South Cape.
And so trying to, let me get you somebody who really knows what they're talking about. She'll be right here.
That's fine. I'm just wondering if there's a way that we could help out.
Yeah, facts are really, data is what's going to drive this continued process forward. So as much information as we can collect and keep it accurate and up to date is going to be key. Ma'am?
Anita Whaley, Business Recruitment and Retention for EDO. I did go out and walk around and I did hand out 2 brochures. One had all the resources and one had the disaster recovery, the survey. And it is on our website under Hurricane Ian. We have it on there as well. And we asked all the businesses to fill that out. Now, I can't force them to do that, but yes, it is important for them to fill it out. We explain to them that that is how we get resources, is by telling our story and the damage. So I'm more than happy to send you that link if you want. So you
Well, I'm
guys-
just saying, she said 38% was all of the city of Cape Coral. And since
Yes.
we're CRA, like I know that the person I go to get my nails done for,
Right.
say, they rent the building. They've got roof damage.
Right.
She's working out of another place that's
Right.
outside the CRA. Their English isn't the best. So I'm just saying, is there anything that I personally can do that would help you, knowing that your department isn't that big,
Sure.
to go door to door. If you gave me a list or a survey and just tell me where I need to hit or specific, I'm certainly willing to do that.
Sure. It's an electronic survey, but I will tell you that I walked all of South Cape that I could possibly walk. I
Okay.
walked down Cape Coral Parkway, Lafayette. I walked on 47th Terrace. I walked on 46th. I tried to cover, again, not everyone was there, and like you said, some people are working out of different offices. I did leave documentation, I left you some, at the businesses that weren't open. I put it like in your door handle if I could, or through your door, or every way that we could, and plus we put it out on the website. I can send you a link, but it's important that they really fill that out electronically, because that data is collected that way. So it'll be easier for us to collect data rather than a hard survey for you to hand out. Does that make sense?
Paid services of what you've done. That's
Right.
kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, so I will. But we have tried to reach out to everyone, and I personally called a lot of the people in South Cape as well, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody
For,
else?
for us, I don't think we filled that out yet, just because it's been so absolutely crazy, and it's just now starting to feel a little bit more normal, so maybe some businesses will have a little bit more time to fill out that information. But maybe if we just want to push to every other business, like, hey, this will help us get more funding in the area, please take some time to fill it out, because it's important.
Okay. All right, moving right along. Thank you very much. And thank you for all you did during this storm and after.
And we'll do.
And will continue. All right, so let's go on to Founders Park.
I think you have to do citizens input?
No,
No?
we're going Founders Park.
We're going to do
Citizens
Founders
input.
Park before citizens
It's an
input.
update continuance of the hurricane.
We need a motion to approve the postponing of Founders Park Improvement Project. Do we want to speak about this first?
If I may, I'll give you a little bit, I'll give the
Yes.
board a little bit of background. As all of you know, the CRA budgeted $250,000 for Founders Park improvements. Bids were issued in July. No bids were received by the due date in August. In September, there was a request for quotes were issued. The 2 quotes were received from 2 different firms, and they came back significantly higher than what was budgeted. The lowest quote came back at $425,863.66. Staff is recommending that the CRA board delay the project, and we're hoping that if the board is in agreement, to have a motion to do so.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Please call the roll. Aye.
Brantley,
Aye.
Gebhardt,
Aye.
Kime,
Aye.
Slaughter.
Yes.
We have 5 ayes and the motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Citizens input time. Anybody from the audience wish to speak? Come to the podium over there. State your name.
Can you hear me? Well, good afternoon, members of the committee there. As an aside there, I'm a business owner and a landowner in South Cape, and I know that out of our 2 businesses out of my building, one of them is out of business. So
Did you
it's
state
very
your name
helpful
the
for the
record?
city to help all our businesses get back to, that person has, had his
Can I
house
ask you-
damaged.
Sir, excuse
Yes.
me, can I ask you to state your name?
I'm
please?
sorry. Architect, 1228 Lafayette Street. So yeah, any help that the city can provide to our businesses, especially in the CRA, would be very helpful and thankful from all our businesses. As an aside there, as an architect, I've had, me and my partner have had our business in South Cape for over 25 years. And I can tell you that the last 10 years, he's retired and I've taken over the business. I've had a lot of business owners come to me for expertise on zoning, land use, building use, anything related to construction in the South Cape. And I've tried to help them as much as possible, as good as I can help them, but a lot of the people that come to me, I cannot help. One of the issues that is dealing with is the parking requirements. You're going to speak to, in new business, you're going to have a discussion on payments in lieu of parking requirements. I feel strongly about that. I have vacant land that I'd like to build on in South Cape that I'm not able to build on because the parking requirements are so onerous that I have to build 80 or 90 parking stalls in a 3-story building. As you know, the South Cape has small lots. We don't own a whole development like the apartment development down the street. So most of the Cape is filled with small lots or small developments. The parking requirements are 1 per 400 right now. It's a 50% requirement through the zoning, so you can reduce that number by 50%, but it's still a high number of parking ratio to building requirement as it is now. So I know you guys were going to be talking about it now. I feel strongly about it. I think that these numbers, that the parking ratio number should be doubled. Right now, there's a 1 to 500 ratio, 1 to 400 ratio. I think those need to go higher for parking. I know of 2 buildings that have approached me after the storm that had roofing damage. So their thought was to tear off the roof and build to a 2nd floor. Well, that would double their area requirements. That would also double their parking requirements. Well, you know, in South Cape, the site is only 75 by 200. So there is no way that he's going to be able to get the additional parking. So if you could look at that, and I know you're going to be, I don't know if you're going to be voting on it or talking about it, but I think that's something that needs to be addressed, the parking requirements in South Cape. I know there's parking all over is that me?
That's you.
Okay. So if you could look at it, I would appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time.
Good afternoon, Bill Steinke. I just wanted to speak in favor of spending the time and effort to survey the businesses in our CRA. I was in a phone conference with Visit Florida, which is basically our state Department of Tourism. And with regard to our businesses getting back up and running, we got to make sure that the people are here to frequent those businesses too. And I wanted to make you all aware of some information that I got, and that is that they have allocated $1 million for Lee County and directing people back to our area to let people know that we are open, that we are alive and well. It is still a good place to come to, even through our disaster, that we are rebuilding quickly, and that it is not just total destruction. And so one of the things that what they use to determine how aggressively to go after that and when to go after that is by taking the temperature of how many businesses are available, how many restaurants are open, how many hotel rooms do we have, and all that information has to get to our Lee County Department of Tourism. And so if we had that factual information of what businesses and how many are currently open, and then when other businesses would become up and available. So the component part of that survey that I heard was, if you're not open now, how long do you think it's going to take to get up and running, will be really, really important information for us to communicate to the county, that then goes to the state to get some of these dollars that they've allocated for us to get the patrons to come to all of our businesses once they're open. And then lastly, obviously, we need to stay in touch with the county and stay tight with them so all that money doesn't get invested on the other side of the river, and that we get our share of it on this side of the river.
Hey, I'm Dorian Zviadevich, the regional SPDC at FGCU. I just wanted, in the citizen section, give you guys 3 quick updates. First and foremost, I'd like to give credit. I worked at the BRC. We have our staff members, every day it's open in the Santa Barbara location. I can't tell you how many times I knocked on my door and sent us over here. So really great work. Thank you on behalf of your business community. The second thing, because one of the council members mentioned a Spanish-speaking business, unfortunately, the SBA doesn't have everybody that speaks Spanish in the BRC. However, while the SBDC is there now, I make sure that in the Cape, we always have someone who speaks Spanish. So if you do have any business owner that doesn't speak English, send them to the Cape Coral BRC. They'll be able to have an SBDC person translate for them. And then the third is we also push out surveys, like a business assessment survey on behalf of the state on our social media and our email list and our website. So just know that a whole bunch of the stakeholders in the community are sharing a lot of the information. So that was all.
Yes. The CRA building located at 1231 Lafayette Street received damage as a result of the hurricane. The roof was damaged, and staff believes that the building should not be occupied until the roof and all other damage be assessed and repaired. Therefore, the staff is recommending that the SBDC lease not be renewed and allowed to expire on November 30th. Additionally, we are also recommending that all past due rent be forgiven.
I'll make that motion.
Any discussion?
So that'll be a motion to terminate the lease as of November 30th.
Allow it to expire.
Allowed to expire, well,
Yeah.
it ends on November 30th with no renewal, and any
forgive
past
the
due
unpaid.
rent is now going to be forgiven.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
That's the motion. Discussion?
Discussion, has that been communicated to the leaseholder? And if so, I get the impression there's some feelings that maybe aren't good that might go back a ways. But do you believe, let's assume fast forward based on what the fire marshal and some of the others have, or the fire chief have talked about, we get a trash picked up. We use as much insurance on our private buildings as possible. Then we use certain public dollars for certain things that are assumed. But after that, at a certain point, we're going to start reusing our buildings. So was that just a bad experience? Because I went through that in my career once where we leased out a building that we should have probably done a better job of identifying the problems that would have been obvious to most people, including the tenant. But my question is, do we intend on using other buildings in a similar way? And if so, have we learned from it? Or is this something simple that with that agency partner, we're just not able to help them anymore?
Well, I can answer. It has been communicated to the leaseholder. In terms of feelings or what have you, I can't answer that question. I don't know. This is the only building that the CRA owns, so there wouldn't be another opportunity for leasing a CRA building. That's really all I have, unless the city attorney's office has something to add.
All I can say is that the CRA's building is pretty darn old, okay? There's damage to it right now, and we do not know the full extent of that damage. Liability-wise, I do not think the CRA wants anybody in there right now until that damage gets repaired, gets assessed and then fully repaired, if it can be repaired, okay? If it is repairable, and it's able to be leased again pursuant to the statutes, basically you have to send a notice out in the newspaper saying it's available for lease. The SBDC can submit again for their interest in leasing that building, or anybody else can do it. Then it'll be up to you as a board to decide which entity leases the property.
Because that's a tough problem, Brian, because architecturally and historically, that community, that building has a value to me as a planner. However, functionally, if it's so worn out and doesn't work, it's a head scratcher type. One that causes other communities, when they have some of those, both a challenge and opportunity, is do we save it? Do we tear it down?
Well, that's not legal, but that is that's basically the assessment that either facilities is going to do and/or any consultant that they hire to check out the structural integrity of the building.
But for all practical purposes, as we speak today, before we've even crossed that bridge, it's not fit for anyone, even city, to go in and do work out of it until it's been.
Correct.
Thank you.
If I may just add something that to complicate things a little further. So we know this building is, it's an older building. It is not a historic structure. It was built prior to 1981. It is covered by the FEMA 50% rule. We know we put a bunch of money into it last fiscal year, FY22. So if we took a look at the market value of the building, we have to assess what the cost of the new roof is going to be, add that to what we have spent within the last year, and currently our city ordinance does a 5-year look back. And there's a good possibility that given the extent of the damage and the cost to restore, to repair that damage, it's going to bring us over the 50% rule. At that point, then our recommendation would be just to simply tear down the building. It's on a 25-foot wide lot that has basically one parking space. We're very limited in what we can do. And so we need to bring you back some information when we complete our assessment as to whether this is something that is feasible to renovate or just demolish.
Biondi. Brantley. Gebhardt.
Aye.
Pine. Slaughter.
Yes.
We have 5 ayes and the motion carries.
CRA resolution to approve the fiscal year 2022 final budget amendment. Mr. Mason.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. Board members, Mark Mason, Financial Services Director. This is actually a very short one. This is the one and only budget amendment we'll do this year. And it's primarily associated with bringing forward any purchase orders, et cetera, that came over from fiscal year 2021, as well as assigning those resources that are remaining at the end of fiscal year 2022 to a project by any other name. So as a reminder, we're amending fiscal year 2022's operating budget, the first and only one, as I mentioned. This does recognize any of your actions that you've made during the course of the year, as well as any adjustments pursuant to 163-387-7 of the Florida statutes. And this final cash estimate is a requirement of statute, and we have 4 options that we can do with it. 1, we can return the money back to the taxing authorities. 2, you can use the funding to reduce debt. Number 3, you can put money into an escrow to reduce future debt. And or you can appropriate to a specific project pursuant to the redevelopment plan. And you cannot change this appropriation unless you amend the project in the future. So in this case, we are recommending, so you have a couple of things here. We brought forward funds from the previous year that we've identified for purchase orders that were outstanding. We also have ad valorem taxes. We actually collected a little bit more than what was originally set up as far as the proposed budget. And at the same time, we have the adjustments for the $685,000 went into the various operating accounts. And when we take all of that and we have the leftover cash, we had about $1.3 million left over in cash at the end of the fiscal year that has not yet been spent or applied to any particular project. And so we're recommending this be transferred out into your capital project funds and applied to land, for land acquisition. I think over the course of the past year, we've talked a number of times about acquiring land for parking, primarily parking. You're going to hear about the pilot program here shortly, and that is one of the goals for us. And if we put that in place, that we would end up in time, providing for additional parking space. And so we have 2 different budgets. We have the the community, correction, we have the normal 150, Fund 150, which is your Community Development Trust Fund, and the associated amendment is $887,371, increasing your overall budget to $15,154,909. At the same time, we also have the Community Redevelopment Trust Fund for the capital projects that is for $1,300,000 that we would apply towards land. So your total budget amendment for the CRA plus capital project fund is $2,187,371, increasing your budget to $17,810,469. And so if anybody was wondering, the $10,350,000 that is for the COVID 47th, we have put that in escrow. It has been spent. Matter of fact, we did it the week before the storm, so that's been taken care of. And of course, they'll be drawing down on that as they do any construction or building associated with that project. And I'm here with any questions.
And I don't know if this is necessarily a question or for you or for anybody, but as you're looking at properties in the CRA district, is it, I think there would be value in looking at residential properties that might, fall in an area that could turn into business in the future. So just when you're looking around, don't, if it's possible to purchase other properties that aren't just vacant lots and business buildings currently, just to keep your eyes out for those.
Okay.
Because there's probably a ton of that coming up in the near future.
There may be.
Could you repeat that, Greg?
So as far as, and I'm not even sure, how this would look, but to purchase properties that might be zoned as residential right now, because there's a lot of stuff, especially back on Lafayette, that is currently zoned residential, that seems, maybe out of place, or that it could eventually be used for something more useful to us than just a couple of small houses there. Or just, and that's a broad statement. It doesn't just have to be right there, but it can be anywhere in the district.
Yeah, because that was in fact at our last meeting when I started talking about some maps and stuff. That's when you start doing those exercises and you realize how you can do something, the enabling language, or when it's not possible, you kind of look and go, well, Vince, is that something we do with our plan or something we do with our land development code? Because the city manager brought up a couple of meetings, certain areas that I know in looking at other communities that have done redevelopment, rather than tearing stuff down, they've kept some of those cottages, and suddenly that becomes a new professional or artist or whatever district. But it admittedly wasn't, it didn't start off as offices or businesses, they were their homes.
Yeah.
But especially the bigger ones allowed them then to chop them a little bit and subdivide within.
Yeah, and
But again, there's some opportunities there, but I think over time, what's worth saving and what do we do? But I like that approach.
For sure, and it definitely doesn't have to change from what it is appearance-wise. It can still stay something that's, cool and small and use it for something different, but it might be beneficial to have it in our hands than somebody else's. Motion?
Let's say a motion to approve CRA Resolution 11-22.
Motion, that's what I meant.
Exactly.
Biondi. Brantley.
Aye.
Gebhardt.
Aye.
Kime. Slaughter.
Yes.
We have 5 ayes and the motion carries.
Good afternoon, board members. For the record, Mike Struve, Planning Team Coordinator with the Planning Division. What I want to do this afternoon is go over a planned unit development that is going through the review process now, and we are scheduling for hearing in November, and that's the Bimini Square project. And there is language in the redevelopment plan that pertains to this particular project, and basically says that one of your responsibilities, a management function of this board, is to review and make recommendations to the local planning agency, or in this case, the hearing examiner, and to the city council on private development proposals in accordance with the redevelopment plan. So that's why I'm here before you today. This particular project has been submitted as a planned unit development, and I want to land here on this slide for just a second and explain that. A planned unit development is just an entitlement process, just like our old PDPs were. PUDs were added to our land development code basically to take the place of PDPs, even though the two processes are somewhat different. But the main thing to remember about PUDs is that before a project can be developed with PUD approval, that requires the approval of a master concept plan that shows the layout of the site, where the buildings are going to be, the access, the setbacks, height, all of that stuff. And in addition to that, a PUD always involves a rezone from a conventional zoning district to a PUD zoning district. The beauty of that is that you get a much clearer idea of what uses will either be developed or will be approved for a project, rather than potentially a developer under conventional zoning requesting a rezone and then maybe potentially being able to apply one of 100 different uses on a site. So in this particular project, there are 2 property owners involved. They're working with Avalon Engineering as the design professional on the project. All 3 sites are south of Cape Coral Parkway and west of Sunset Court. So there are actually 3 different sites that constitute this project area, separated by street rights-of-way. The collective area of these sites is a little over 5.5 acres. And the developer is requesting a rezone of the 5.6 acres from the mixed-use Bimini zoning district, which is the underlying zoning district, also part of the CRA, to a mixed-use PUD. And they're seeking approval of a master concept plan for over 58,000 square feet of commercial uses, 218 dwelling units, and a parking garage. This aerial shows the 3 sites. All sites currently are undeveloped. You'll notice that the largest site has frontage on Cape Coral Parkway. Site directly to the south has frontage on the Bimini Canal. And looking more broadly at surrounding sites, this is sort of a transitional area where you mainly have commercial uses to the north of Cape Coral Parkway, residential uses to the south along the Bimini Basin, and then sort of a mix, but immediately adjacent to the PUD site, mainly residential uses. And this shows some of the uses that are located in very close proximity to the 3 different sites. To the north, again, commercial uses. To the east, you've got Sunset Towers. To the west, mainly small multifamily development, but you also have a small retail building at Palm Tree and at Cape Coral Parkway, and then to the south, several multifamily uses. This shows the different sites here that are color-coded. On site number 1, the largest site, this site would be developed with 3 buildings that would be wrapped around a parking garage. There would be about 50,000 square feet of commercial uses on this site. The parking garage would be able to accommodate about 500 vehicles. Site number 2, which backs up to the Bimini Basin, would be developed as a waterfront restaurant. And then site number 3, which is the site to the furthest west and the smallest site, would support a small commercial or surface parking lot that would be used primarily as overflow parking for the restaurant. And these are just fairly recent aerials, although they were taken before Hurricane Ian, showing the 3 different sites. This is a master concept plan that staff has reviewed for this project, with the numbers of the site circled here in red, just so you can better navigate your way through the plan. On site number 1, there's 3 different buildings. A at the northwest corner, B to the south, C near Cape Coral Parkway and Sunset Court, that are all connected to this 6-story parking garage. To the south, you've got the waterfront restaurant, and then to the west, you've got the surface parking lot. This is a landscaping plan submitted by the applicant that gives you a much better idea of both streetscape improvements and landscaping associated with this project. So there would be some fairly significant streetscape improvements consisting of pavers along Cape Coral Parkway with street trees, and those street trees or those plantings would continue around this entire site. On the restaurant site, you've got a little greater setbacks on the east and west property line, so that provides opportunities for more green area and trees. And there would also be a opaque fence along here to provide for some buffering between this restaurant use and the multifamily developments to the west. And then lastly, on the parking lot site, there would also be trees located around the periphery of the site with an opaque fence located to the interior of those trees, largely to prevent headlights from cars that are using that parking at night from those lights intruding into the nearby residential areas. These are the permitted uses that the developer has proposed for this development: commercial parking lot or garage, multifamily development, office use, retail, and restaurant. This suite of uses could be expanded in the future, but it would require an additional public hearing if the developer wanted to add additional uses to the PUD. The dimensional standards include setbacks. This is just to give you an idea of the building setbacks. Building setbacks on site number 1, the largest site, would range from 8 to 12 feet. So the buildings would be up on the street, which is what you want if you're trying to promote good urban form and in an area that you anticipate will be walkable in the future. Building setbacks on site 2 generally are greater for most property lines, more sort of a suburban flavor, if you will, with the setbacks being greatest along the east and west property lines, directly adjacent to existing residential uses. Other standards here, density works out to be 40 dwelling units per acre for this project. Floor area ratio, that's just a measure of the commercial intensity associated with this project, which actually is about average for most commercial projects in the city at 0.25, perhaps a little bit larger. The maximum height of the project would be 82 feet 4 inches. 35% of the area would be devoted to open space, and the number of on-site parking spaces would be 566, 500 in the parking garage, an additional 66 spaces spread across the 3 sites as far as ground parking. That also does not include additional parking that's proposed for the city right-of-way. This is a elevation of the north side of the building, so this would be the facade that would be facing Cape Coral Parkway. You see the entire building elevation at the top of the screen with an enlargement of this particular building shown on the 2 depictions immediately below. And this is a rendering of that building, just to sort of give you a flavor of the architectural style that would be employed. elevations for the restaurant. The top elevation is the front. Second elevation, or the middle elevation, is the rear, which you notice has considerably more glazing, so the restaurant is really oriented towards the water, has a very strong water orientation, if you will. And these are renderings of the restaurant. The one on the right with a perspective from the water, and you can see the mixed-use building in the background. This has some information here summarized on access and transportation. I mentioned earlier the parking garage. Staff's recommending that access to the garage be limited to the south from Tudor Drive, although drivers exiting the garage could use either the Cape Coral Parkway or the Tudor Drive exits. There are some pretty significant improvements that are also being proposed by the developer along several of the local streets that really go above and beyond our code requirements. That would include sidewalks along local streets, pavers in some area, and then crosswalks that would provide direct connections among the three sites. The redevelopment plan has several policies that are applicable to this particular project. The first one is a policy that states that it seeks to optimize the capacity of on-street parking where appropriate. In this case, there is a proposal to actually enhance or increase the amount of on-street parking in the CRA. The second encourages and provides incentives for new projects to use structured parking, or a parking garage, if you will, to optimize green and open space. So this project certainly supports that policy directive. The third one states, utilize incentives, regulations, and the developer negotiation process to encourage residential projects that are aesthetically and functionally related to adjacent uses. This mixed-use development provides a good transition between more intensive commercial uses to the north and less intensive residential uses to the south. And in addition to that, the uses that are proposed within the building itself should be highly compatible with one another as well. And then the last policy states, or encourages, I should say, the development of retail and restaurant operations that have access to waterways. While retail uses are one of the uses that would be allowed in this PUD, there are more specific plans for developing a waterfront restaurant along the north shore of the Bimini Basin, which certainly is consistent with this policy directive. Staff is in the process of advertising this case, and we'll be bringing it forward to the hearing examiner on November 15th. We are seeking a recommendation from the CRA board on this project to report to the hearing examiner and to eventually to the city council. And I'm here at your disposal in case you have any questions about either this project or process.
We have a motion. I have one question. Okay, let's do the motion, and then we can have discussion.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It just occurred to me too that we do have representatives from the developers team here too, in case you would like a couple differing perspectives of the proposed project as well, Madam Chair.
All right, let's do the questions then first. Thank you.
I know we've discussed in the past about infrastructure for around Bimini Basin. Is that going to be okay for this project?
So the city is in the process of making some pretty significant capital improvements, as I think you're probably aware, for the CRA area at large. We anticipate sometime next year that infrastructure, if it's not suitable now or at capacity to provide water and wastewater flows, it will be available next year.
That was just a concern.
Yeah, I have a similar question, Mike. In addition to that, off the top of your head, were there any just incentives that just jumped out where you said, well, in this project, I'd really define it as, here's where the developer struggled or had a challenge with some of our codes? Because what I'm really interested is in a PUD, when you get a little deal making made, what were the deals? In other words, you've already mentioned one where we didn't have adequate infrastructure, so you don't just pile it to the developer because they're only going to do what they need done and they're not going to care about everyone else. So that's a huge one for me because those development orders take a long time, but sometimes it shows the best of your community's work and your staff because you can work those deals and both sides come out that well. Was there anything else that jumped out of that?
Not really, and much of that, Board Member Slaughter, is a city responsibility to provide that infrastructure. We're in a process now where we're quickly catching up to that. In terms of, from the developer standpoint, we'll be bringing more water and sewer capacity to the entire CRA. And it may even be adequate now if the developer was ready to pull permits. What we don't know right now is how many other projects between now and approval of building permits for this project might be wanting to go online and might be using that capacity that exists now but won't be adequate farther into the future. What the developer would be doing is once that additional capacity is ready, they may be responsible for a lift station or something like that, or for bringing those lines from our trunk lines onto their site. So that's how that will sort of work.
All right, what about parking? Two questions. One, was the small third lot just simply something they wanted and needed because they owned it? Or is that, again, something that they had to put in simply to make the numbers work? And then secondly, if that's the answer, then that probably answers my other ones. Was there any availability of any other parking to be used by others and then some type of negotiation? Or did they simply build what they could?
Okay, so answering your first question first, that was not needed to meet our parking standards. That will be overflow parking. And the developer did provide a pretty detailed parking study for this project. In terms of the parking garage itself, there should be more parking than what will be needed in the majority of days to provide adequate parking for the office uses and the restaurant uses. And the city is in the process of negotiating with the developer to secure 100+ sites for public parking outside of the actual uses on the site.
But does there seem to be an interest in slowly having some private parking agreements amongst each side where the city doesn't become a referee, but during the development review, it at least notices if you need X amount of parking, but you can handle it through these two businesses, especially if they work different hours of the day where their demands are not competing with the same spot?
Well, some of that will exist. We'll memorialize the number of steps that we get for private parking in some type of agreement between the city and the developer, and that will also likely be a condition of approval in the PUD as well. In terms of the hours offsetting, yes, there will be some offsetting hours. The office uses will generally run from 8 to, or 5 to, we anticipate maybe 9 to 5, something like that for most days. The restaurant may be open during the noon time. It's a little unclear to me. It'll certainly be open during the evening, so there's a little bit of an offset there too. The fact that this is a mixed-use project is as well, there will be some type of internal capture too. So people may be parking to visit and we anticipate Lee Health leasing most of this office space. They may be parking to visit Lee Health and then walking across the street for lunch, or they may live on the site and then at the end of the day may decide to visit the restaurant, in which case they wouldn't need to get in their car to do that. So that helps to reduce overall parking demand on these types of projects.
Last question, do you remember when they initially applied? Because one of the things that I think a lot of people forget is how complicated in the timing. Like if they're finally gonna go to the HEX in November, how many years ago did they start some of the initial discussion?
I don't know when they began actually working with the developers, but this project was submitted back in, I want to say, May or June to the city for review.
So we've had it for almost a good half a year.
We've had it close, we've had a what we consider a complete application, I believe, for a little less than 6 months.
All right, thank you, Mike.
Subject to those conditions appearing in the staff report.
Make that motion.
Second.
Biondi. Brantley. Gebhardt.
Aye.
Keim. Slaughter.
Yes.
We have 5 ayes and the motion carries.
Madam Chair, when Mr. Struvey prepares his presentation, I wanted to provide a little bit of background information on this topic. Staff presented this concept to the City Council at a recent workshop. Staff received direction from Council that Council was favorable towards the concept, and staff is working on a proposed ordinance which we plan to bring back to Council for final approval. What we're looking for today is your input on the concept itself. There will be questions that we won't have answers to yet, details that will be contained in the draft ordinance. Our plan, if you approve this concept, is to bring the draft ordinance back to you with those details that you may not have today. But we'll let Mr. Struvey go ahead and present the information to you. Also wanted to know that this is an optional program, optional plan. It would provide property owners another tool or another, an alternative option for the parking regulations in a specified area of the CRA.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the PILUP, this is about the PILUP, or Payment in Lieu of Parking program. It's a program that we propose to reintroduce into our land development code. It existed under the old land use and development regulations and was eliminated, and we developed the land, or when we adopted the land development code. And the name of the program is pretty self-explanatory. This program would basically allow developers to pay for parking that they could not provide on their site below the minimum parking standards for that particular site. So if 10 spaces were required by code, at the end of the day they could only provide 9, they would pay a fee and the city would forgive that parking space for that particular site. Those monies collected would go into a fund that in the future would be used to acquire land for perhaps a parking structure, for a commercial parking lot, or to support parking-related programs. So that's the presentation in a nutshell. But I'll go into a few greater details here. There are parking opportunities in the South Cape that don't exist elsewhere in the city. Our parking requirements for most sites in the South Cape are significantly lower than they are for other zoning districts, like for the C and the P zoning districts. And there's a good reason for that. And one of the reasons is that we have a preponderance of sites that are already developed, and many of those sites are very small. And where we really run into difficulties with parking in the South Cape are for those developed sites that either want to expand their businesses, in which case now that expansion is requiring more parking that might be adequate but might not be sufficient with that expanded business, or in situations where a use changes, either in a building or in a portion of a building. And in particular, when you're going from a less intensive to a more traffic demanding use, like from an office to a restaurant use. Those also cause parking challenges. We do have city parking lots in the CRA, and developers that own property within 25 feet of those parking lots or parking areas can use those parking lots in part to meet their minimum parking requirements. We also have a fair amount, more so than other areas of the city, of on-street parking in the South Cape District. And likewise, developers that have properties within 500 feet of parking spaces that are striped in the city right-of-way can also utilize those spaces to meet, at least in part, their parking requirements. And then lastly, in the South Cape District, and this is unique to the South Cape District, we do allow parking in some instances in unimproved lots, meaning lots that are not paved. And we allow this when those unimproved lots are located immediately adjacent to an established business that wants to use that particular unimproved lot to meet their parking requirements. This is a slide that shows the location of parking areas and parking facilities in the South Cape. I'm going to walk you through this. I know it's a little bit busy. One of the items here that is shown on this drawing are city parking lots. There's two different categories of those. We have sites that are platted. Those are shown in orange. And the most prominent of those two are Club Square, shown to the north here of Cape Coral Parkway, and then another orange area to the south of Cape Coral Parkway, which is the parking lot associated with the former Veterans Museum site. In addition to that, we have several deeded sites that are shown in blue parallel to Cape Coral Parkway. That would include Big John's Plaza and the Iguana Mia parking lots. We also have a couple of sites the CRA currently owns, one on Vincennes Street, one on Vincennes Boulevard. These are relatively small sites, but we project that these could be developed between them with about 65 parking spaces. So that would provide additional parking for the public. And then lastly, we have stripe parking along several city streets in the South Cape. That includes Southeast 11th Place, Southeast 9th Place, Vincennes, and Cape Coral Parkway. And collectively, those provide about 140 parking spaces. I mentioned the Bimini Basin earlier. The city through an agreement arrangement with the developer should get over 100 parking spaces associated with the Bimini Square parking garage. In addition to that, you see the red dot here on this particular drawing. That's the Cove development, which is a mixed-use development, which will also have structured parking. And the city is planning on securing about 125 spaces for the public at that facility as well. There are several sources in which developers can utilize for seeking parking relief in the city. And this applies not just to the South Cape, but citywide. So one of those is shared parking, where you may have two businesses located adjacent to one another, but their hours completely offset. So one business could allow the other business to utilize their parking when they're not operating. Another category is satellite parking, where you have two sites in close proximity to one another. One site needs parking, the other site has an overabundance of parking, and so the one site loans or donates or is a donor site for the other site. We also allow parking deviations, in our land development code. And you might think of this as similar to a variance. This provides limited relief, but a developer may request relief up to a maximum of 5% of the required number of spaces. So if your development required 20 spaces, you could seek a maximum amount of relief of 1 parking space. And then lastly, we have a more general category. And if a developer believes that our parking standards are overly restrictive for their particular development based on the use that's employed and maybe some other factors that are unique to that of business, they can provide the city with what we call credible evidence that may be used to approve a lesser parking standard. So they could provide us with a site-specific study. They could point to information that is found in some widely accepted reference manual like the Institute of Transportation Engineers to justify a lesser parking standard, and the city could approve it on that basis. And all of these items here on this particular slide can be handled administratively. They're usually approved by the planning manager, does not require a hearing of any type. Now, in terms of the payment in lieu of parking program, this would be a voluntary program that a developer could choose to participate in. So I mentioned earlier, there is a mention of pilot fees in our land development code, but there is not the underpinning, if you will, that indicates how this program would be administered, doesn't say when you could apply for the fees, what the fees would be used for, and so on. So it's really something that can't be implemented at this time. The program would allow owners to pay for parking spaces they cannot provide, and I want to emphasize here that commercial development, developers that are seeking to, are looking for relief associated with a commercial development would be eligible for this program. Developers of multifamily housing, for example, could not apply for this program. We want them to provide parking on their sites. And then lastly, this program would apply for a portion, not the South Cape District in its entirety. This is sort of the old core area, if you will, of this CRA, where you do have a lot of these small existing developed properties. So this area is bound by Coronado Parkway to the west, Del Prado to the east, and then Southeast 46th Lane to the north, down to Miramar Street to the south. In terms of when these fees could be applied, they could be applied at any number of different steps during the review process, during the issuance of a certificate of zoning compliance, a business tax receipt, minor site plan, site development plan, at the building permit stage, or at another type of permit or development order. The fees themselves, this would be sort of a two-step process where the bulk of the regulations in terms of how the program would be administered would be handled by ordinance, and we have a draft ordinance prepared already. The companion piece to that would be a resolution that would outline the fees that would be charged for each space. So those two pieces at some point will travel together, and both would need to be adopted eventually by the City Council. The fees themselves, once they were paid, would be non-refundable, and they would be non-transferable. So once they're paid to one site, an owner could not reapply them or move them to another property that they own. The fees would run with the land and could be used again in the future if the site was to be redeveloped. And lastly, in terms of how the fees would be used, any collected fees could be used for land acquisition and physical improvements to support parking in the future in the South Cape. The fees could also be used to help implement and run parking-related programs. And these are just examples like the trolley program, valet parking perhaps, providing bus services, those types of things. And I'm available in case you have any questions about any facet of these proposed regulations in the program. They would have to be in a separate fund so we could ensure that they would be used to support parking-related activities. And not only that, but either physical improvements or programs in this specific area of the South Cape.
I have a question. I know we're hurting for parking. I know we're working on getting more parking. Do you ever foresee in the future of taking those spaces away on Cape Coral Parkway for people to drive home from whatever, going to an extra lane than having the parking?
It's a hard question to answer, and it's possible that some of those spaces may be lost, particularly depending on the future design associated with the bridge, the College Bridge. The number of spaces, I will say that the number of spaces and the physical location of those on-street parking spaces that I showed earlier, that's not a static number. That is changing over time. For example, there are areas, some areas in the South Cape that have right-of-ways that are wide enough to accommodate more spaces. The previous discussion on the Bimini Square project, I showed you where the developer there is planning to stripe over 30 spaces along several local streets to provide for more on-street parking in the city right-of-way. So even if we lose parking on one particular street or one section of a particular street, there are probably more opportunities to add additional parking along additional city streets in the South Cape.
I just would think that eventually Cape Coral Parkway, because it is bumper to bumper, that I think it was like 58 spaces, I don't remember what you had said, could be better utilized someplace else to open that up.
Yeah, and our records here show that there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 spaces along Cape Coral Parkway currently.
Yes?
And then I just want to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly. If a business opened up and bought spaces and then sold so they sold the business, could those spaces be transferred to the next business, or is that something that the next business would have to reapply for and
No. So the fees run with the land and not necessarily with the business per se. So if an owner of a parcel acquired 3 spaces and then he sold his property, the entitlements to those 3 parking spaces would stay with the land, and the new owner could enjoy the use of that parking relief.
Okay.
Up to 3 spaces.
And what if it is a business that is getting those instead of the landlord? It would stay with the landlord, so that's like making improvements essentially to the business or to the land? If the business were to pay for those instead of the landlord?
It's an entitlement that stays with the land.
Okay.
It is tied to the land, and not the owner necessarily or the leasee. The owner certainly can enjoy them, but if he sells the land, then the new owner can enjoy those.
Gotcha.
Mike, would an easy way of looking at that be simply if the use leaves, well, what's the new use? And then you calculate its impact. So if it were to need even more spaces, well, belly up. But you said there's only a limit of how many can be done from the initial use. So if I have business A and I want a relief of 2 spaces,
Yeah.
say 12, but I'm going to only put 10 in, and that's kind of what Greg said. So then, but that use leaves, and then a new use goes in, well, and I'm looking at your application right now for local business tax receipt, you'd essentially look at the new use going, well, what's the value of that? So like two questions. The first would be, if it came back to a neutral, would the prior business owner get a relief for that reduction, or just simply you put money in the bank and thank you very much and now move
He's-
along?
Well, it's really the latter. In this particular case, if he's paid into the fund, and now the property is being redeveloped, and he can meet the parking standard, there's no rebate on the fee. The parking fee is non-refundable, but maybe down the road in 10 years, the site is again redeveloped. Or maybe even in a couple of years, the use changes in that building, where they were meeting their parking standards 6 months ago, but now they're going to a restaurant use that requires more parking, and now they can use that pile-up, those 2 pile-up spaces they acquired a couple years ago now.
You guys identified a value yet?
We have not. We've kicked around a couple of numbers. What makes this a little, I don't want to say tricky, but wants us to be very deliberative about this is just the way costs have escalated over the past year, not just land.
Yeah, that's why I asked.
Labor.
It'd be hard to pin that tail on the donkey. if the
Yeah, so
donkey
we
won't.
want to make sure that the number that we were thinking about some time ago still actually accurately reflects the cost of parking.
Well, and the good thing about it is you're buying land and you're also building parking lots. And I
Right.
remember asking Mike at the last meeting, you kind of have an idea of what a parking lot costs and do the math. And guess what? There's probably a pretty good average of what a single space would cost then, or the value of.
Well, there is if you're talking about ground parking. Now, if you're talking about structured parking, then that's a different animal. Those costs are going to be much higher. So that's something else that we got to sort of consider in terms of trying to strike the right balance. So, again, we are collecting fees that are going to be adequate to reflect the value of that parking space that we are basically forgiving.
Right. I appreciate your effort on that.
Okay, any other questions? Do we have a motion to recommend approval of the proposed pilot program?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion, payment in lieu of parking, that we approve the staff recommendation.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Biondi.
Aye.
Brantley.
Aye.
Gebhard.
Aye.
Keim.
Aye.
Slaughter.
Yes.
We have 5 ayes and the motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, special event sponsorship applications. Who would like to go first? Do we have a motion to approve the sponsorship of the 38th Annual Cape Coral Arts Festival and Marketplace Rotary Club of Cape Coral for the cost of police detail, an amount not to exceed $5,000? Do we have that motion? I have a question. Okay.
Before we go through this list of asking for approval, I'm very concerned about the monies, especially with the hurricane and repairing all this stuff and not knowing. I feel like sometimes people come to us and ask for money. We don't even know what 47th Terrace is going to be like in the near future without the lights and the landscaping. I don't know if it's a hazard, if it's safe. Apparently it's not that bad because people are going down there to the restaurants and stuff. But I'm just really concerned about the budget. Maybe I need, Mark must have left. Maybe I'm just concerned that we're going to need this money for other things. But some of the events that are newer, I support that. That's it.
If I may respond to that, Madam Chair, I believe that the total requests are, what 15, 20,000. In the grand scheme of things, I think it's relatively, I'm sorry? 25,000. The grand scheme of your FY23 budget, they're relatively de minimis. I think, you know, if you wanted to proceed with supporting these special events, your budget can handle it.
Madam
Thank you.
Chair.
I also would just like to say that in lieu of the hurricane, I think we need the art festival. I think we need New Year's Eve. I think we need all of these programs to drive people to our city, to drive people to our CRA. And I am in favor of approving these requests. But we have to do them one at a time, yes?
Go ahead, finish.
No, I'm done.
Oh, I was just going to agree with you. I think it's short-sighted to think that you're talking about all these businesses here that are struggling in the CRA. This is the opportunity they have to grow their business. January Art Festival is the one thing that supports, you know, many, many businesses in the downtown. So I know you're trying to be conservative and you're worried about future spending, but this is an investment in community. So I hope this council will consider strongly supporting these events. Also, if you saw what we did for Halloween here, the city manager was a proponent of bringing community together. It was unbelievable, the amount of people that were here and how much they welcomed normalcy. So if you're trying to create that, I think that you would be very short-sighted not to support these events.
If I can also, Madam Chair, make another a point. We have done a preliminary assessment of the conditions along the route of where the art festival will go. There's some issues, but we think that between now and January, we can resolve the issues and the festival can move forward as planned. It won't be life back to normal, certainly on 47th Terrace. It's going to be a while before we really replace the damage that's been done there. There might be one or two other events that have asked for sponsorship from the CRA that may not happen. However, I think staff was operating under the assumption, let's go ahead and get in the queue for funding in the event that we can host the event, but there's a good possibility. I think one of them is the boat along for the Christmas holiday. That given the conditions in the waterway, and right now the Coast Guard has recommended against any type of recreational boating in the waterway until that's lifted. There's a good possibility that event won't happen.
I have a question then. If we put this money aside for these events and they don't happen, it just remains in the budget and we can use that for other things. Okay.
And for the record, the CRA has only paid after event is held. We've never prepaid a sponsorship.
Correct.
So if the event is canceled or unable to continue, the funding remains in the budget.
Okay. Yeah, because I know with the Parkway, with Cape Coral Parkway and some of the side streets, Lafayette Street, some parts of Miramar and Del Prado, we were not able to have Veterans Day Parade, as Todd can attest to. There's just too much, it's not safe. So hopefully by January, that'll all be cleared up and we can move forward with the art festival. So do we have a motion to approve the art? Can we do all these at the same time or?
No, everyone is
one
a
at a
separate
time?
transaction.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the sponsorship of the 38th Annual Cape Coral Art Festival and Marketplace, the Rotary Club of Cape Coral, for the cost of the police detail in an amount not to exceed $5,000?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Biondi,
Aye.
Brantley,
Aye.
Gebhardt,
Aye.
Keim,
Aye.
Slaughter.
Slaughter?
Aye.
Oh, we didn't
Sorry.
hear you, sorry.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the sponsorship of the Veterans Recognition Breakfast in the amount of $5,000?
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Biondi,
Aye.
Brantley,
Aye.
Gebhardt,
Aye.
Keim,
Aye.
Slaughter.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Do we have a motion to approve the sponsorship of the holiday boat along in the amount of $5,000?
Motion.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Biondi,
Aye.
Brantley,
Aye.
Gebhardt,
Aye.
Keim,
Aye.
Slaughter.
Aye.
We have 5 ayes, the motion carries.
And last but not least, do we have a motion to approve the sponsorship of New Year's Eve in South Cape in the amount of $5,000?
Motion.
Second.
Call the roll.
Biondi.
Aye.
Brantley.
Aye.
Gebhardt.
Aye.
Keim.
Aye.
Slaughter.
Yes.
We have 5 ayes and the motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Next, the approval of Cape Coral Community Redevelopment Agency's 2023 meeting schedule. Has everybody had a chance to look at it? Do we have a motion to approve the meeting schedule as presented?
I'll make the motion, and also I support Commissioner Brantley's comment that if we need to do some additional work, I think the next few months, when possible, let's do it.
Need a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Biondi.
Aye.
Brantley.
Aye.
Gebhardt.
Aye.
Keim. Slaughter.
Yep.
We have 5 ayes. The motion carries to accept the calendar as presented.
Okay, next is board appointments for the Community Redevelopment Agency's chair and vice chair. We need a motion,
We need a nomination.
we need nomination, and then we need the motion. But let's do the nominations for chair. Go ahead.
Can we do both at the same time or just one at a time?
You can do,
Right now, it's Linda and Brantley, right? I would like to continue that, because I know her and I are termed out in 1 year. That's so that, my motion is to nominate Linda and Brantley.
Second.
Third.
Well, that's Linda's chair, Mr. Brantley is vice chair. And then, does anybody else have any other nominations? Okay.
Did we have a second? We had a second. All right, call the roll, please.
Biondi.
Aye.
Brantley. Gebhardt.
Aye.
Keim. Slaughter.
Yes.
We have 5 ayes. The motion carries.
And as we know, those have to be approved by city council.
Of
Yes,
course.
these are recommendations to council.
All right, reports of staff.
No report.
No reports. Reports from the board. We'll start with you, Mr. Slaughter.
Just one real quick comment. I'd like to thank the chair, Linda, and Jim, the vice chair, for serving both last year and this next year, if council approves it.
You're good through 26.
Yeah, you're here for a long time.
Ms. Chair Biondi and Commissioner Keim will term out
Will be termed
January
out.
22nd of 24. Yours, Gebhardt, Brantley, and Slaughter will continue through 26, January of 26.
Janice, any comments?
The only thing I had asked at the last meeting, and since we had the hurricane, is the new position, the guy that we hired, we hadn't met him, and I was wondering, since we don't have lights and stuff like now, what, is he also helping with the assessment of the CRA?
There's plenty for him to do in the downtown, so I'm sure,
There is.
yeah, he's the one that went out there, and he is a licensed electrician and has been doing the work on the lights, but specifically with the lights, since they were submerged by the storm surge, the equipment has to be replaced in its entirety, but he's working.
Will we need him?
Ever?
No, no, we're going to keep him a secret. If you know he's there, you're going to be, tasking him to do things out
You'll
there.
recognize him.
Sure, we'll bring him in. I'm sorry that we didn't do that this meeting.
He was actually planning to be here today. He was planning to speak during citizens' input, and something came up and he had to leave unexpectedly.
Thank you.
Greg? No comment? Jim? None. Gloria? No. I know, and thank you. Gloria's been a city council person forever, and we thank you for being our liaison. Maybe maybe when we're termed out, she might, come on this board. Be like a step
we're gonna be
down,
on a
but. Anybody else, any more comments? Time and place of future meetings. Tuesday, February 7th, 2023 at 3 o'clock in council chambers. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. Don't forget to come to the Veterans Breakfast if you are a veteran. And have a happy Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, and all the other happies that go with it. We need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.